Hey guys, welcome back to DLH Performance. Today I want to talk about, we previously talked about truing cranks or balancing cranks. We did a few videos on those, and I had a request from a fella about truing the cranks. So he wanted a little bit more detail because he was having issues truing it. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. Now, it helps if you have a stand to use, but what I want to talk about so you understand what truing is and how it works is we'll just use these two pieces of tape. So that's the best way I can show you. And we'll just say the pencil is the pin on the crank. So the pin here, the pin on the crank. Okay, we'll just use a pencil as that. So what's happening with your crank is, and we'll just put it in like this so it's offset, just like the pin would be. So what's happening with the crank is we'll say like the first adjustment you need to do is say your AB. And the first adjustment is the spread. Okay, so if we say our pin is at the top here, and we're worrying about the spread of the two discs. So that's what I adjust first. I try to bring these two discs so that the spread is even. So when the crank is spread, what will happen is the journals will go up and down and it'll wobble. So that's why we want to true it, so we get rid of the spread. But so we'll say that's A and B on your crank. C and D is this movement where your crank is not parallel with each other like this, and your crank is up. Okay, so those are the two things that we're working with: spread and paralleling it. So A, B, C, and D. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, you can do this a couple ways. Like I said, you can make yourself a stand like this, and you can put a meter on it, and you can zero it at the top of the pin, bring it around, and you can figure out the spread. Once you get the spread figured out, then you can turn the pin so it's in half rotation and do the C and D and get the disc aligned parallel this way. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to take it over to the lathe. So you can do it on a stand like this with a couple basic tools like this, a meter on here measuring your journals as they go up and down, and you can adjust it. That's one way. And use basic tools to spread or squish it together. You know, if you have to, bring it in together so that you get these journals parallel. Okay, and then you can also, to get the crank aligned this way, you can take this up and you can hold it halfway and you can tap it like that. And that'll bring it this way. The way I usually do it, so that's one way to do it. That's one method. The way I like to do it is I take it over to my lathe, and I lock it into the chucks, and then I only have to deal with this one stationary, and I only have to deal with one side. And we'll show you on the gauge to go through and show how it actually works. Okay, let's go do that. Okay, I have a crank set up on my lathe and dial indicator, and I've cleaned off the journal so it doesn't have any bumps or anything in it. So what I'll go ahead and do is I'll set it up at the top of the pin at 0. Okay, that's my 0, because the pin really doesn't move. That's a central location of where the crank is squished together. Okay, so we set that up at 0, and then what I do is I rotate it 180 degrees so that my pin is at the very bottom, and I'll look at the gauge. Okay, so pretty much if you look at it here, it's 0 at the pin, 180 degrees, and it's showing that the crank needs to come up, so it needs to be squished. So if we squish it here, the crank journal will come up, and then this will come close to 0. So that's the first part. We'll get that set in, and you're going to end up going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth as you get your spread and then your parallel, right? A, B, and then C and D. Okay. All right. So we established 0, 180 degrees, and the journal needs to come up. The journal needs to come up. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to squish that in the center here. That's about halfway point there, and I'm gonna squish it. Okay. All right. So now we'll go back and set it at 0. So our dial indicator is way out, so I'm gonna 0 my pin again. And I always keep going back to zeroing it at the pin. And then I'll rotate it around 180 degrees. And now that little squish I did is way out. Okay, so that journal has come right up. So bringing it together has brought the journal up, and now we're like out like 12 thousandths. It's a lot. Back at 0, 12,000. Okay. So now what I need to do is I need to spread it out slowly. You're going to find you're going to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Okay. Top of the pin, 0. Bring it down 12 thousandths out. And I'm going to find halfway point there because I'm in the half now. And I'm just going to push it out a little bit. Re-zero it after I made my move on the pin, and we'll go down. So now it's down back to where we were. So, and it needs to go up. So I just have to squish it again slightly lower. So just slightly, just a little bit of a squish this time. We'll go back to here. We're at 0, and it hasn't moved. It moved a little bit. So I just have to do it again. I'll squish it in. Oop, that was a lot. I have to spread it out again now. Okay, back at 0 at the pin. And, oh yeah, see? Back at 10 though. Okay, so now I'm going to spread it out again. So you can see what's going on here. Back at the pin 0, go around. Okay, and it's come down a little bit. So just slowly keep going back. So spread it a little bit more. Check the pin is at 0. And we'll go back. Okay, so now it's come down. So we were at 12, now it's 10, now it's 8. Just slowly keep doing that. Bend it ever so lightly. Okay, put it back at the pin, set the pin 0 again, and rotate it down. Now we're slowly coming down. Okay, so let's keep going, and we'll spread a little bit more. Check back at the pin, we'll 0 that again. Okay, and we'll rotate it around again. And look, we're almost back at 0. So our spread's almost even. So you get the picture there. Back at 0 on the pin. Rotate it around. Let's come. The thing with this is it's really time consuming, and you have to have lots of patience, like lots of patience. Back of the pin, we still haven't quite got it yet. I don't want to go too far because I'm going to lose it again. Back 0. And I'm like 1 thou out. The pin. 2 thousandths out. Okay, let's try it a little bit more. Okay, back at the pin. 0 it. And rotate it down. Okay, look at. Now our spread is even, okay? But as we rotate it 90 degrees to the C and D location, we can see that our crank is now like this. So now we have to align that. So this is high on this side. So we got to bring it down to the 0. Okay. So what we do here is we move this out of the way. And take this hammer and I'm going to tap it there. Ooh, that was a little bit hard. And once you do that, you got to go back and check your pin again. It says 0. Check your spread on the other side. And now we're up again. So that means it needs to be spread out. So what I'm trying to show you here is when you adjust one, it affects the other. So you just got to keep going back and forth back and forth. Go back to the pin, set the pin in center, 0, rotate it all the way around, and I'm close there, so I'm just going to leave it with 2 thousandths out, and I'm going to check it at, so we set the spread, it's 2 thousandths out, and now we're going to set this. And I'm pretty close. So now you can see that we're slowly getting to where we want to be. 0, halfway around, 2 thousandths out. So it needs to come up a little bit, so we need to squish it. So I'm just going to go ahead and slightly squish it. Ever so gently. Just tiny little bit. Let's see how that affected it. Lots of patience. Need lots of patience. Always go back to your pin. 0 pin. Check the other side. We're almost 0. We're a little bit out. It needs to spread. Needs to spread out a little bit. And we come around here, and it's up. So it needs to come down. So knock it down a little bit. It looks like a thing. So I'm just gonna go ahead and go to C and D, and I'm gonna knock it just slightly. Go back and we'll set up the pin again to 0. It looks like it's almost on 0. Right there. Patience. Lots and lots of patience. Rotate it around to the bottom of the pin. Now we gotta spread it more. So this is high again, so now I gotta spread it. So I'm going to spread it again a little bit. Back to the pin, 0. It needs to spread about, it's out 2 thousandths off the pin, so I'm going to spread it just a little bit more. 0 the pin. Go around. Okay, I'm back 0. I'm 0. And C and D for this way. Check the pin again. 0. $180. It's very, very close. It's like 1/2 thousandths. And this needs to come down just a tiny bit. Okay, so I'm going to risk moving this down a little bit again. Just a tiny tap. And that's going to throw everything out again. I'll have to go back and reset. So back to the pin. Oh, we're looking good. And we got to spread it just tiny little bit. So that's what we'll do. Spread it slightly. Hopefully that's not too much. Just a tiny bit more. There. Check the pin again. 0. 180 degrees on the pin. Almost 0. It's like 1/2 thou. Okay, let's rotate this. So you guys get the base idea. It's always going back to the pin, zeroing it, doing the A, the B, 180 degrees for the spread, and then going and doing C and D for the parallel. And you just keep going back and forth. Once you've tried to parallel them, it's going to affect the spread. You go back to the pin, set it at 0, readjust your spread, then go back to C and D. Reset that, adjust, check the pin, and you just keep going back and forth, back and forth. So I'm going to turn this on now. We're just going to see where we're at. So this dial is just a little bit out. Let's try that. So now we're only out half a thousandths or 1,000ths now between the spread and paralleling it, which is not bad, but we can get a little bit better. Take your time. This takes a lot of patience. Follow that sequence where you're going from the top of the pin, zeroing it down to 180 degrees to the bottom to get your spread, adjusting the parallel, and then going back to the pin, zeroing it, and just keep repeating and keep repeating it. It's a very difficult thing to do. Take your time and have some patience. Very small moves. I hope this helps. Thanks for watching. If you like what you see, please hit the like button. I really appreciate that. Have a good one.